The Orion Reach had known war for so long that it no longer felt dangerous. Battles followed schedules. Fleets met at marked borders. Weapons were tuned to disable, not erase. Losses were counted, accepted, and filed. When the fighting paused, diplomats returned to their tables and spoke as if nothing important had happened. Admiral Han Taijin watched another conflict unfold from the high command sphere above Kalos Prime. Light from distant weapon fire blinked across the wide display walls. His face stayed calm. He had seen this pattern since his first year in service. Ships advanced, exchanged measured fire, then withdrew when the limit was reached. Strategist Yura stood beside him, her hands folded behind her back. She spoke in a soft and steady voice as numbers scrolled in the air. Casualty rates were within tolerance. Hull damage was repairable. No civilian stations were at risk. The models showed a clear outcome. One side would concede a trade route by the end of the cycle. War to the Council was a managed process. Around them, officers moved with quiet purpose. Commands were issued without urgency. No one raised their voice. There was no fear in the room, only routine. The galaxy had trained itself to fight without panic. Captain Sujin Park commanded the nearby observer fleet. Her task was simple: record events, enforce rules, ensure both sides followed the agreed limits. She leaned forward in her chair, eyes half-focused, more bored than alert. Then the sensor officer spoke. A single contact had appeared at the edge of deep range. Its signal was weak but strange. The mass reading did not match the size it appeared to be. Sujin asked for confirmation. The scan repeated. The result did not change. The contact was alone. Yura glanced at the data and dismissed it at first. Courier ship, she said. Or a lost merchant. Conflicts often attracted watchers and scavengers. The galaxy was full of them. Han Taijin nodded and turned back to the main battle display. Another exchange of fire bloomed and faded. The conflict was nearing its end, but the sensor officer spoke again, this time slower. The contact was accelerating. Sujin straightened in her seat. She ordered a focused scan. The observer fleet shifted position and fed power to their long-range arrays. The image sharpened. The ship was large. Larger than any courier. Larger than most warships. Its hull shape was unfamiliar. Angular. Layered. Scarred. No transponder code answered their call. Han Taijin turned back to the sensors, his brow tightening. Unknown ships were rare in Council space. Unknown ships that ignored hails were rarer still. He ordered a diplomatic channel opened. The message was formal and calm, delivered in standard trade language. The ship did not reply. Instead, it kept coming. The mass reading climbed again as more detail resolved. Internal power signatures appeared. Not one core, but many. Redundant systems stacked on each other. Energy reserves far beyond treaty limits. Yura felt a flicker of unease. She adjusted the models, feeding in the new data. The predictions broke apart. The equations no longer balanced. Sujin whispered that the ship's engines were still cold. It was coasting. It was not even trying to arrive quickly. That detail unsettled her the most. The contact crossed into the outer edge of the conflict zone. Automated warnings triggered across the fleets below. Weapons crews paused. Targeting systems hesitated. A symbol appeared on the hull feed as the resolution improved. Simple, old, a blue field with a white circle, and a small star within. Liaison. The intelligence coordinator recognized it first. Her breath caught. She pulled up archived records at once. Old admission files. Early diplomatic reports. Human entries. Earth. Humans were not unknown. They were new, but loud. They argued in council chambers. They pushed against limits. They complained about rules that others accepted without question, but they were also seen as contained. One system. A handful of colonies. No great alliances. No ancient fleets. The reports called them emotional, wasteful, inefficient. Laya felt cold as she scrolled deeper. She found older footage. Not council-approved summaries, but raw records from before humanity joined. Wars on their own world. Conflicts without pause. Cities burning. Entire regions shattered to deny an enemy ground. Human wars did not stop when limits were reached. They stopped when one side could no longer continue. She sent the files to Han Taijin and Sujin without a word. The human ship finally slowed. It took position above the battlefield, like a shadow falling across a quiet street. Its weapons remained inactive. Its shields did not flare. It simply watched. Below, the alien fleets disengaged by instinct. Fire ceased. Ships pulled back. Commanders waited for council orders that did not come. Han Taijin felt something he had not felt in decades of service. Uncertainty. He opened another channel, his voice still calm, but firmer now. He requested identification. He requested intent. He reminded the unknown vessel of council space. Law. The human ship did not answer. Minutes passed. Then the sensor screamed. The ship's secondary systems powered up. Not weapons, scanners. Fields spread outward, touching every vessel in the zone. Shields were mapped. Hulls were measured. Weak points were marked. Yura stared at the readouts. The scan quality was impossible at that range. It felt invasive, like a hand closing around the throat of the battle. Sujin ordered her fleet to pull back further. For the first time in her career, she acted without waiting for permission. The human ship did not stop them. At last. A transmission came. It was short, clean, unemotional. This space was now under human observation. Hostilities were to cease. Any further aggression would be answered. No threat was spoken. No demand was made. The message ended. Silence filled the command sphere. Han Taijin realized then that the galaxy had made a mistake. It had assumed all species learned war the same way, slowly, carefully, with rules to soften the damage. Humanity had learned war differently. They had learned it when there were no limits, no referees, and no one to stop them but themselves. The fleets below held position, afraid to move, not because they had been ordered to stop, but because something deeper told them to. For the first time in a very long history, war felt real again, and the galaxy did not know what to do with that feeling. The human warship remained still above the quiet battlefield, yet it felt louder than any battle before it. Its presence pressed on every sensor and every mind. No shots were fired. No engines burned hard. Still, no commander dared to resume the fight. Admiral Han Taijin called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Faces appeared across the circular chamber, some calm, some confused, some openly tense. Many had never seen an unknown power interrupt the council-sanctioned war. Han spoke carefully. He described the ship, its size, its power readings, and its behavior. He avoided speculation, but fear crept into his voice despite his effort. This was not a rogue pirate or a lost patrol. This was a deliberate arrival. Several counselors laughed it off at first. One suggested the humans were posturing, trying to gain attention. Another claimed the ship was likely outdated, its mass exaggerated by faulty scans. Humanity, they said, had never shown the ability to build something like this. Lia Song requested permission to speak. When granted, she shared the archived footage she had found. Raw images filled the chamber. Human cities reduced to ash. Long wars fought without pause. Factories turning day and night to feed the front. Soldiers returning again and again until there was nothing left to fight over. The chamber grew silent. These were not staged threats or propaganda clips. The data carried timestamps, confirmed sources, and verified loss counts that exceeded entire alien wars, combined. Laya explained in simple terms. Humans did not stop fighting when losses became high. They stopped when survival demanded it. Their history had forced them to learn endurance beyond reason. Captain Sujin Park joined the session from her command chair. She described how the ship had scanned the fleets, the depth of the scan, the precision. She admitted openly that her fleet would not survive a direct engagement. That admission shocked many. Observer fleets were designed to survive anything short of total war. The idea that a single ship could erase one was hard to accept. Han Taijin asked the question that sat heavy in every mind. Why had the humans come now? To answer it, they needed context. Laya brought up recent council decisions. Trade sanctions placed on Earth, limits on expansion corridors, forced arbitration rulings that ignored human protests. At the time, these had seemed reasonable. Humanity had been outvoted. From a council view, this was normal governance. From a human view, it may have looked like pressure. The council authorized direct contact. A formal diplomatic hail was prepared, stripped of threats and heavy language. Han Taijin himself would speak. The message was sent. This time, the human ship responded. The voice that came through was calm and even. It introduced the speaker as Commander Yi-Hoon Kim. His tone held no anger, no pride, no fear. He stated that Earth had reviewed recent council actions and found them unacceptable. Humanity was withdrawing from council. Arbitration. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Yi-Hoon continued. Earth would no longer fight limited wars under external rules. Any future conflict involving human space would be treated as an existential threat. Han Taijin asked for clarification. He asked if this was a declaration of war. Yi-Hoon answered no. This was a declaration of boundary. The human ship did not seek to conquer. It did not demand tribute or territory. It demanded recognition of consequence. To demonstrate this, the commander requested a clear area of space. A small, uninhabited moon on the edge of the conflict zone was selected. It held no life and no strategic value. The council hesitated, then agreed. The human ship shifted position slightly. Energy built, not in a sudden surge, but in controlled layers. Sensors strained to track it. Power readings climbed beyond known scales. One weapon fired. There was no beam, no explosion that spread outward. The moon simply came apart. Its structure failed all at once, breaking into dust and fragments that scattered into silence. No shockwave touched nearby ships. The message was clear. This was not a weapon meant for battle. It was a weapon meant for endings. Fear spread faster than any alarm. Not panic, but a deep understanding. If this ship fired within a fleet, there would be nothing left to count. Yi-Hoon Kim spoke again. His voice did not change. He stated that this was the only warning Earth would give. Humanity would not escalate step by step. It would not trade blows. It would remove threats completely. Then the channel closed. The council chamber erupted. Some demanded retaliation. Others demanded immediate concessions. Long-trusted strategies collapsed in minutes. Han Taijin felt the weight of history pressing down. The galaxy had built its peace on shared restraint. Humanity had built its survival on decisive force. Sujin Park watched the human ship from her viewport. It remained silent, weapons powered down as if nothing had happened. That calm frightened her more than the demonstration. She realized humans did not enjoy this. They did not celebrate it. To them, this was responsibility. The alien fleets below slowly withdrew. No one ordered them to. They simply understood that continuing would be foolish. As the battlefield emptied, the human ship stayed in place. A reminder carved into space. The galaxy had always believed war could be controlled. Now, it had met a species that believed war should be prevented by making its cost unbearable. And that belief changed everything. The days that followed were heavy with silence. Messages moved across the galaxy, but few ships did. Trade lanes slowed. Patrols stayed close to home. Every commander waited to see what humanity would do next. The human warship did not move. It stayed above the empty conflict zone, quiet and watchful. Its presence became a fixed point in every star map. Pilots altered routes to avoid it. Sensors checked it again and again, as if it might vanish if ignored. Admiral Han Taijing remained at Kalos Prime, buried in reports. Council members argued without end. Some wanted to push back, to test the humans with numbers and alliances. Others warned that numbers meant nothing against a force built for total war. Liaison continued her research. She studied human strategy texts, old speeches, and records of how Earth rebuilt after disaster. A pattern formed that she could not ignore. Humans prepared for the worst before it arrived. They stored resources beyond need. They trained crews to operate even after losing leaders. They designed systems that kept working while damaged. Their ships carried scars because they expected to be hit and planned to fight anyway. This was not pride. It was habit. Captain Sujin Park received an unexpected message. A request from the human ship for a neutral meeting. No weapons. No fleets. Just commanders. The council debated for hours before agreeing. Sujin was chosen to attend. She boarded a small shuttle and flew alone toward the massive hull. As she approached, the scale of the ship became clear. Layer upon layer of armor overlapped like stone plates. Scars marked its surface, not patched or hidden. They had been left as they were. The shuttle docked without a sound. Inside, the corridors were wide and plain. No banners. No grand symbols. Crew members moved with calm focus. They glanced at Sujin with curiosity, not hostility. Commander Yi-Hoon Kim greeted her in a simple meeting room. He stood, offered a brief nod, and invited her to sit. There were no guards. Sujin noticed his hands first. They bore small marks, old injuries healed long ago. Yi-Hoon spoke plainly. He said the meeting was not a negotiation. It was an explanation. He explained that Earth had joined the Council in good faith. Humans had tried to adapt to limited war rules. They had agreed to restrictions they did not believe in. But each conflict under those rules had brought war closer. Not farther away. Humans believed that slow. Careful fighting only taught enemies how much pain they could endure. It turned war into a tool instead of a last resort. Sujin asked if humanity planned to attack. Anyone. Yi-Hoon said no. Humans planned to make attacking them unthinkable. He told her the ship she stood in was not unique. It was one of many. Most were older. Some were larger. That truth settled like a weight in her chest. The meeting ended without ceremony. Sujin returned to her shuttle and left, her mind racing. Elsewhere, not all reactions were calm. A distant alliance of border systems saw opportunity. They believed the humans were bluffing, relying on fear rather than numbers. They gathered a fleet, confident in their combined strength. They advanced toward a human outpost on the edge of mapped space. The warning arrived before the fleet crossed the final line. A single message, identical in tone to the first. Turned back. They did not. The human response was swift. Not the warship at Kalos Prime, but another, unseen until it arrived within the fleet's formation. It did not fire immediately. It jammed communications. It disabled engines with precise strikes. Ships drifted, powerless but intact. Then the human commander spoke. Leave. The fleet tried to respond, but fear had already taken hold. Engines came back online just long enough to flee. No ships were destroyed. No lives were taken. The message spread faster than any victory story. Humanity could end fleets. And chose not to. Back at the council, this restraint confused many. If humans had such power, why hold back? Liasong answered that question in her report. Humans understood escalation better than anyone. They knew that destruction was easy once begun and hard to stop. They preferred fear to ashes. Admiral Han Taijin finally addressed the council with honesty. He admitted that the galaxy had grown comfortable. It had forgotten that war was meant to be avoided, not managed. He proposed a new framework. Conflicts would be judged not by balance, but by risk. Any action that could draw humanity into war would be forbidden. Some called it surrender. Others called it survival. As debates continued, the human warship finally moved. It did not jump away. It shifted position to orbit a nearby empty star. A message followed. Humanity would remain present, not as rulers. As a reminder, Sujin Park watched the distant shape settle into place. She realized the galaxy had crossed a line that could not be undone. War would never feel safe again. And perhaps, she thought, that was the point. The galaxy did not return to normal. It reshaped itself around the idea of humanity. Routes were redrawn. Treaties were rewritten with careful words. Military academies added new lessons that spoke of consequence instead of balance. Admiral Han Taijin spent long hours reading reports from every border. Conflicts that once flared now stalled. Commanders asked for permission more often. They measured risk in new ways. Fear had become a factor again. Liasong worked beside him, sorting through human communications that were now shared openly. There were no boasts, no threats hidden in poetic language. Everything was direct. If attacked, response would be final. This clarity changed behavior faster than any rulebook. Captain Sujin Park returned to her post, but she felt different. The memory of walking through the human warship stayed with her. The quiet discipline. The scars left untouched. Humans did not hide what they had survived. She noticed how her own crews spoke now. Jokes about battle faded. Simulations ended early. Not because of victory, but because someone realized how easily things could collapse. Elsewhere, resistance grew in small pockets. A minor power, long frustrated by council limits, saw the change as weakness. They believed humanity was overstretched, playing the role of guardian without the numbers to enforce it. They planned a strike meant to embarrass rather than destroy. A raid on an unmanned human station, followed by a quick retreat. The raid began quietly. The station defenses activated at once. Not strong, but stubborn. Systems rerouted. Power flowed where needed. Automated messages were sent. Within minutes, a human fleet arrived. Not one ship, not a swarm. 3 vessels. They did not chase. They cut off escape routes. They disabled engines with clean, focused fire. No debris clouds. No wild explosions. The raiders surrendered within moments. The response that followed shocked the galaxy. The raiding ships were returned intact. Crews were treated, questioned, and sent home. No punishment was demanded. Instead, a message was broadcast. This was mercy. Do not mistake it for weakness. The message echoed. Across council space. Laya explained the logic to the council. Humans understood something many species did not. Crushing every enemy created endless enemies. Teaching fear without hatred preserved space for peace. Some counselors struggled with this idea. Others began to adapt. Admiral Han Taijin met with Commander Yi-Hung Kim again, this time through a secure channel. There was no tension now, only careful respect. Han asked a question that had troubled him since the beginning. What if fear failed? Yi-Hung answered honestly. Then humanity would endure whatever followed. They would rebuild, They always had. That answer stayed with Han long after the call ended. In distant regions, old enemies reopened talks. Borders softened. Resources once spent on fleets were redirected to defenses and recovery. The galaxy learned a new lesson. Peace held longer when war felt unacceptable. Sujin Park watched as a former rival convoy passed her fleet without escorts. No weapons charged. No posturing. Trust was fragile, but it was growing. The human warship at the quiet star remained where it was. A silent weight on every decision. Not moving, yet shaping everything around it. Children on distant worlds learned new stories. Not of glorious battles, but of the day war stopped feeling safe. Some feared humanity. Others respected them. Most simply adjusted. As cycles passed. The Council issued its final revision to war doctrine. Limited war was no longer recognized. Any conflict risked total response. The doctrine was simple. If you are not willing to face the end, do not begin. Admiral Han Taijin signed the record with steady hands. He knew the galaxy had changed forever. Not because humanity sought control, but because they refused to forget what war truly was. Time passed, and the galaxy learned to live with the quiet weight of humanity. The stars did not look different, but choices made beneath them did. Ships moved with more care. Words were chosen with more thought. The human warship still remained near the empty star. It had become part of navigation charts and training lessons. Cadets studied its arrival as a turning point, not as a battle. Admiral Han Taijin prepared to step down from service. His final duty was to record a complete account of the change that had followed the human arrival. He chose his words slowly, knowing future generations would read them. He wrote that peace had not been achieved by kindness or fear alone, but by memory. Humanity had carried its memories openly, and the galaxy had felt their weight. Leah Song stood with him during the last review. She had become one of the leading voices on interspecies security. Her work no longer focused on predicting battles, but on preventing them. She often thought about the old days, when war was spoken of as a tool. Now it was spoken of as a failure. Captain Sujin Park received her final assignment before retirement. She was to escort a diplomatic convoy to Earth. It would be the first full Council visit to the human home system. As her fleet approached, she saw something that surprised her. Earth was not bristling with weapons. There were defenses, strong and layered, but they were quiet. Trade ships moved freely. Civilian stations glowed with life. This was not a world waiting to attack. It was a world determined to survive. Sujin met Commander Yi-Hoon Kim one last time, this time on Earth itself. They walked through a memorial garden that listed names by the thousands. No ranks, no symbols, just names. Yi-Hoon explained that every major human city had a place like this, not to honor war, but to remember its cost. Sujin understood then why humans fought the way they did. They did not see war as glory. They saw it as debt. The Council delegation signed a new accord. It did not grant humanity special power. It acknowledged reality. Human space was sovereign. Aggression would meet final response. Peace would be protected by shared restraint. As the ceremony ended, news arrived from a distant sector. A long-standing feud between two rival species had been settled peacefully. No fleets were mobilized. No shots were fired. Both sides cited the same reason. They were unwilling to risk a war that could not be limited. Back near the quiet star, the human warship finally powered up its engines. Observers across the galaxy noticed it once, but it did not move toward any border. Turned inward. The ship jumped away, returning to human space. The message that followed was brief. Humanity trusted the galaxy to remember. The absence of the ship felt strange at first. Some felt relief. Others felt unease, but the lessons remained. Years later, children studied the era as history. They learned that war had once been routine, that it had once been safe. They struggled to believe it. Admiral Han Taijin passed away quietly, his final record complete. In his closing words, he wrote that humanity had not saved the galaxy. They had reminded it. They reminded it that war was not meant to be comfortable. That fear had a purpose. That survival often depended on refusing to forget the past. Sujing Park spent her days watching the stars from her home station. Trade flowed. Borders held. Disputes ended with words more often than weapons. The galaxy never returned to the way it was, and no one truly wanted it to. They never dreaded war again, because they finally understood it.